The Singularity in Space Station 14 is basically harnessing a black hole in order to produce radiation to make essentially infinite power. Plasma is the fuel, but it's a really low cost, and I'll cover that towards the end. In order to find a singularity generator, first you must look for the particle accelerator. Particle accelerator is always going to be facing space because the singularity needs to be in space, otherwise it would eat the station directly. And this is what the machine looks like. Every station is slightly different. Some are facing north, east, west, you name it. And they are normally in different states of completion. In order to figure out how completed this configuration is how it is always meant to be. The computer will always be right to the right of the field chamber, and it needs to be set up just like so. If you don't know what's wrong with the particle accelerator, you can click scan parts, and it'll tell you in which parts are incomplete. They'll be grayed out. If you shift click a part, it will tell you exactly what it needs. In this case, on Metastation, you need low voltage cables, and I intentionally picked Metastation because it's unfinished but not incomplete. Disrepair, for example. So this is all you need to do is get some low voltage cables. Thankfully, engineers don't have much of an issue with that. You can just get them out of a U-tool, and you spawn with a screwdriver. That's all we'll need. So you go around to each part and left click them to add the low voltage cables. There is a small do after bar. It is basically an instant process here though, and you can do it all from one area. And then finally, once you do that, you just screwdriver it. And again, some stations, this is already complete for you, and you don't even have to do this. But it is a very short process, and every time you complete a step, you can always feel free to rescan it, and it'll tell you when it is operational. However, this is only one part of the process. Next, we actually need to get the singularity generator, and we need to put it out there in space in the center of this square lattice. Every engineering department has a storage room that looks pretty much always like this, and the button to open it is also usually just right next to it. You need to look for the gravitational singularity generator. You're going to have to unanchor it, which you use your wrench that is in your tool belt to do so. And you just control left click it to drag it with you. Next, you're just going to want to bring the gravitational singularity generator to whatever airlock is facing space. It is different per station, but you can always identify the space airlock by, well, it will be a red airlock leading out into space. It's usually not that hard to figure out. Before we even go outside, every station's also a little different with this. There's these radiation collectors, and they should have a filled plasma tank inside and that's indicated with this green light. If you shift click it, it'll say the indicator reads full. You just left click these to turn the radiation collector on, and basically the singularity is going to pulse radiation through these windows and right onto these radiation collectors to make power through these high voltage power cables, which are already wired up for you. And there's always two sets, so I will turn this on like so. Now we need to get a hard suit, which is dependent on the station. You usually just find them in your engineer lockers or suit lockers, depending on the map. And we also, of course, are going to need something like oxygen to be able to actually go outside. Oxygen, again, not very difficult for engineers to find. There's these tanks that you can find them in. Sometimes they'll actually have the plasma tanks you need for the singularity, so keep an eye out for these gas tank dispensers. For convenience, I've toggled the lights on so you can actually see what I'm doing. In the center of this lattice, you just put the gravitational generator right in the middle. You don't have to anchor it, it's irrelevant, but if you want to, it looks a little nicer. But this is going to disappear into the singularity anyway, so it does not matter. Now you basically just work your way around like a clock. You need to turn these gravitational field generators on, and you need to turn these emitters on. This is station dependent, but you need to make sure that these emitters are hooked up with the medium voltage cable. If they're not hooked up with medium voltage cables, they'll turn red and not turn on. You can also alt-click emitters to lock them, so anyone without engineering access cannot work on them. We can see that even with just one containment field generator turned on, we are making containment fields, but we want it to be safe. We're going to turn all of them on. You can always shift-click containment field generators to figure out if you have switched them on. Also, you'll see the lights turn on when they actually start getting hit by an emitter to let you know how much energy is in them. Keep going around turning all the emitters on. We have turned all of the containment field generators on. If you're ever wondering what these Tesla coils are for, Tesla coils and singularities are made in the same place, but we're just covering the singularity right now, which has no use of Tesla coils or these grounding rods, which you can also see out in space usually. So we are done out here now. For just running the singularity, this is all you need. This will last indefinitely as long as we have power, as long as these emitters aren't broken or the medium voltage cables are snapped, whatever the case may be. This singularity will run forever. And using extra containment field generators for meteor defense is very highly recommended. It's also very recommended to use redundant wiring in order to make this safer, but Space Station's a game about experimentation. I will include those videos in the comments below if you want to see more advanced Singularity guides, but this is just a beginner guide, and experimenting and failing is part of the game, so I won't include it in this video. Now we are pretty much done. We can power the entire station just by turning this on. There are 3 levels of a particle accelerator, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 will make a small singularity, a level 2 singularity, and this will power the station, but it's spotty, and I will show you why when it generates. The singularity starts off as a tiny little ball, and then the level 1 particle accelerator will basically maintain this singularity in this state. Due to the fact the singularity is small, it will actually bounce around its containment field, meaning that the radiation isn't always directly pouring through these windows onto these collectors. So if we look at something like a power monitoring computer, we can see that we are generating a good bit of power, but you can see that it is very spotty and will jump around quite a lot. I do not recommend you use level 1 for really anything other than maybe getting it started and waiting for approval, because if this were to get loose at this point, the station would be fine. It really wouldn't eat all that much. It would have a hard time eating more of the station in general. So what I do recommend is you probably should just leave the strength on 2. The level 2 strength will make this singularity bigger in a few seconds. Once it is bigger, it will produce more radiation, it will be larger, there you go, and it will be closer towards the radiation collectors more of the time, so that means more power generation, and the station will be happy with you. You could up it to a level 3, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. It will just pulsate between an even larger singularity, and it does produce more power sporadically, so it's really up to you if you want to do 2 or 3. Level 2 is technically safer, so if it were to somehow get loosed randomly by a meteor, it wouldn't have as much energy to eat the station, but I'm not going to exactly cover that. That is honestly really it. The only thing that you have to worry about now is you look at these radiation collectors, and you could just alt-click the plasma tank out of it. You can then go find a plasma fuel canister to fill up the canisters directly, like a plasma canister like so. You could just alt-click the canister to unlock it, put the canister inside, click open, drag this up to the maximum amount, click close, eject, and then you'd go put the plasma tank back in the radiation collector. It is very simple. Of course, we're also getting irradiated because the singularity, again, uses radiation to make power. A lot of stations have these built-in radiation shutters to lock off the radiation. We can hear the Geiger counter stop. The blast doors also work for this. So be very cautious. If your windows aren't made out of plasma or radiation shutters or a mix of both, you will irradiate basically all of engineering, and that can get very bad very quickly. Solid walls don't have very good radiation protection, so in Metastation, if you stand too close to the walls, you actually still would keep getting irradiated. So you could consider this a project for engineering to upgrade. You could use reinforced walls, plasma windows, uranium windows, just anything that is good against radiation. Maybe a bit too wordy of a video, either way, just to cover how the singularity works. Thank you for watching.